Good morning, almost afternoon, everyone. My name is Justin Ramos, and I'm an educator at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County. And welcome to another edition of Friday Storytime. Today, we are going to be reading about a local monument that some of you might be familiar with and may have even visited. It's called the Watts Towers. The Watts Towers are a series of really tall towers located in Watts, California, and they were built by a man who's kind of mysterious. His name was Simon Rodia, and he called himself Uncle Sam, and he came to this country when he was 14 years old from Italy. Didn't speak much English. He didn't have any formal training in architecture or construction or design or anything like that, and yet he built these amazing towers. Now, do you think he had a construction crew and a whole, slew of tractors and cranes and forklifts at his disposal? Nope. Simon built these towers all by himself with very limited tools and no formal training. But what he did have is very important. I call it the 3 Ps, easy to remember: positivity, perseverance, and possibility. So he saw the possibility for these towers, right? He wanted to build them. He wanted to make something beautiful. So he saw that it was possible. He remained positive. He didn't get down on himself that he didn't have any formal training or he didn't have a forklift or a tractor or a crane. He remained positive the whole time. He wanted to make something beautiful, and he persevered. Now, perseverance is kind of a long word, but it just kind of means stick-to-itiveness, that you don't give up, that you keep going until it's done. And Uncle Sam may not have had a lot of tools, but he did have possibility, positivity, and perseverance. And with those 3 things, he created beauty using unexpected things in unexpected ways. And that's kind of the theme of this book here, which I'll introduce. It's called Dream Something Big, the story of the Watts Towers, written by Dianna Hutts Aston, and the collages are by Susan L. Roth. Now, these aren't illustrations, they're not drawn, they're collages, so they're bits of paper and tiles and different things that they just photograph. And it's really cool illustrations. I'll show you. So let's begin, and let's find out how and why Uncle Sam built the Watts Towers. All right, let's begin here. 1 chip of tile. Uncle Sam held it in his hand, studying it, his imagination turning like a kaleidoscope. He put it in his pocket. "I'm going to do something big," I heard him say. 1 chip of tile. Let's how it starts off. 1 chip of tile, just like this. Now they use that word in their kaleidoscope. You see that big word, turning it like a kaleidoscope. Does anyone know what a kaleidoscope is? It's kind of a long and funny word. Let me show you. I actually have a kaleidoscope here. This funny looking gizmo is a kaleidoscope. And it's just a bunch of random things in this little compartment here, seashells and beads and whatnot. And there's a couple of mirrors inside of the tube. And if I put this here, you can see the different designs that it makes when you spin the compartment. Now I like this kaleidoscope because even though the things in here are kind of random and they may be kind of boring on their own, if you look at it in a different way, you can see beauty in an unexpected place. So let's see what Uncle Sam is going to do with his 1 chip of tile. I didn't know it then, but that chip of tile was no longer trash. It was the first building block to a candy-covered castle. Uncle Sam was my neighbor. His name was Simon, but we never called him that. We lived in Watts, California, on 107th Street, where the aroma of tamales sizzled in the air, where the trucks of Japanese farmers rumbled to and from vegetable markets, where music and laughter rippled from diners and dancers at the Watts Tavern. So we can see there's Uncle Sam in the hat and his overalls here, and there's his little friend and her dog. And they live in Watts, California. Very diverse neighborhood. Tamales. Raise your hand if you like tamales. I raised both my hands. I love tamales. So let's see what Uncle Sam is going to do with this. I wonder what that candy-covered castle is. No one really knew what to think about Uncle Sam. This man who talked to himself as he hunted through garbage heaps for things no one wanted. A rainbow of broken teapots, plates, tiles, and sparkling bottles. I collected jewels with him along the railroad tracks. Sacks and sacks and sacks of them. My favorites were the tiles with the blue flowers, the soda bottle with the girl in the bubbles, and the green horse. For every bag of bits, he gave me a penny. Pennies bought lots of candy. So what do we see here? There's Simon and his friend collecting treasures by the railroad tracks. See that? So it looks like Uncle Sam likes to find things that most people would think are trash or wouldn't really give a second thought about, and he's collecting them. Now, I like this book, and I chose this book pretty quickly because I trying to do the same thing. I just have this heavy coffee can full of cool rocks and shells that I've found in my travels. You know, like this one kind of looks like a heart. This one looks like a prehistoric fish. Here's a penny. Here's a fake jewel. And, you know, there's really no practical use to collecting it, but I love to do it. Here's a fun looking rock. I got a whole can full of them. So Uncle Sam, his mission really kind of speaks to me. So there he is, collecting. Let's see what happens next. Oh, let me show you something really cool I found on my walk yesterday before I continue. Look at this little like doll cherub head that must have fallen off a statue. It was just on the sidewalk when I was walking yesterday, and I picked it up. I said, this is perfect for story time. It's kind of cool, right? Kind of eerie, kind of nifty. You guys ever found anything cool on your walks or on a hike or at the beach? Maybe it's a really cool seashell or a penny or a quarter or a dollar if you're lucky. So Uncle Sam is finding all these cool things. Uncle Sam worked in the tile factory every day except Sundays and holidays. But he worked on his creation every night, every Sunday, every holiday. He took those bags of glass and he smashed them. Whack, whack, whack. I watched him shove steel rods under the railroad tracks and transform them into rings. Uncle Sam was small and skinny, but his muscles were mighty. Some people called him crazy, but he wasn't. He was a magician. Does anyone know what Uncle Sam is doing here? It looks like he's breaking up those tiles to make smaller pieces, like this. Instead of just one big tile, he's making small pieces of tile. And he's using the railroad tracks there to bend the steel because he didn't have any machines. He didn't have a factory at his disposal, so he's just bending steel with the things that are around him. Here we go. In broken things, he saw what no one else noticed. He found hearts in the backs of old ice cream parlor chairs, flowers in faucet handles, the sun in rusty gears. People who couldn't see the hearts and flowers wondered, why build it? Why build it? I can't tell you, he said. Why a man make the pants? Why a man make the shoes? What kind of things can we see in the tiles here? Take a good look. What do you see? I see a flower. I see a couple flowers, actually. I see a heart. Can anyone spot the little bird? So Uncle Sam is collecting all these little tiles, all these different things, and he finds beauty in unexpected places. Uncle Sam is finding hearts in the backs of ice cream parlor chairs, flowers and faucet handles, the sun and rusty gears. So he's finding beauty in places where you may not think to look. And I love that. I love that. Just little details of things when you go out for walks, look up at the buildings, you know, look at the sidewalk, maybe the cracks look like something, or they look like a letter, or especially I live close to Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena, and you walk up and down Colorado Boulevard wearing a mask, and all the architectural designs on the tops of the buildings that I never really noticed because I'm so used to like looking down. But when you look up, oh man, it's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. So Uncle Sam talked to himself while he mixed a secret recipe for mortar. This much sand, this much cement, this much water. Cement as powdery as flour, sand as finely ground as sugar, water to bind them. He wrapped wire mesh around the poles, smoothed the cement around them, and carefully pressed a jigsaw of jewels into his batter of wet cement. Day after day, year after year, working on his something big without gloves until his fingerprints were worn away. What do we see a lot of here? What do we see a lot of on these 2 pages? I see a lot of hands. I see some hands almost in every panel. Uncle Sam loves to work with his hands. Have any of you ever made anything with your hands? Maybe it was a school project or a card you made for someone you love, or maybe some working with clay. Working with your hands is a very, very rewarding and fulfilling experience, and Uncle Sam loves to work with his hands. A ship appeared, a tower rose, a cactus garden bloomed. Those are his towers. See a little cactus garden on this side. Can you spot the ship? Can you spot the shape of a ship shape up in here? In his strange mix of Italian and English that was difficult for all of us to understand, he told us about the great towers and the ships that he'd seen as a child in the parades of his village of Ribotoli. Towers that were 6 stories high. So do you see those towers behind Uncle Sam? Those are towers from his village when he was a child, and that's what's inspiring him. These are places that were really important to Uncle Sam. Can you think of a place that's really important to you? A place that fills you with awe and wonder, or just a place that makes you really calm and comforted? To me, that's a museum. Any museum is a place that just fills me with wonder, but I think I would have a hard time building that with my hands and by myself, but maybe one day. Yes, and we will post the title and author of this book. Uncle Sam worked long into the night, singing to himself, flitting from rung to rung like a firefly. Turn out the light, Uncle Sam. I'm a-working up here, Marguerite. Every day the trains passed by with tens of thousands of passengers a week, going to and from Los Angeles. The towers were Uncle Sam's stage, the passengers his audience. Dust from the trains swirled around him, but he didn't let that bother him. He was in the spotlight. Can we spot Uncle Sam? He's all the way up on the tower up there. All these people are passing by looking at him. Another tower rose. Uncle Sam showed my children the triangles and the branches of trees. He said, were the triangles, he said, were the strongest shapes. And he built his towers with triangles, day after day, year after year. So our narrator, Marguerite, is growing up, and she's taking her children to go see the towers. So Uncle Sam has been working on this for a long time. And then Uncle Sam said that he's using triangles in a structure because it's from nature and they're really strong structures. Have you ever seen any shapes in nature? Maybe you've seen like a face in the clouds, or you play that game when the clouds are really billowy and you can kind of pick out shapes, or spots on a cat. Maybe, like Uncle Sam said, triangles in a tree or on a leaf. So he's using shapes and designs from nature to help inform his design. So it makes it really strong. He showed me and my children the beauty of a broken angel, a bowling ball, a boot, the usefulness of an airplane wing, the patterns shells and rocks could make. Uncle Sam was like a spider, weaving his web of steel and cement and lacy shadows. The third tower was his last. He wrote his initials, and nuestro pueblo in cement, our town, a village for the world. What can we see here? There's a lot of different things on this page. What can we see? I see an airplane, maybe buttons. I see the angel in the top corner, some tiles. I just love this. Uncle Sam is finding beauty in unexpected places, and he's making beauty in unexpected ways. And, you know, objects have lives, objects have histories, and it's true. Uncle Sam realizes this. Not long after that, he put away his tools and his jewels and stopped building. We were all surprised. He put on a suit, pinned his life savings inside of it, and gave the deed to his triangular lot with its ship and towers, fountain and gardens to a friend, and walked away. We never saw Uncle Sam again. Those are the towers. So he felt like he was done. He said, I've created a thing of beauty. Moving on. But I remember him, my Uncle Sam, my neighbor for 34 years, the dreamer. Isn't that a beautiful illustration there? People no longer call Simon Rodia foolish and crazy. They call him a man of genius who built a gigantic flower of folk art. A man with a heart full of gratitude to the country that had invited him to dream without limits, the country that had given him the freedom to reach for the sky. Uncle Sam's Something Big is now a national landmark. That's a real picture of the towers there. And there's Uncle Sam. Can you see him? Up in there with no ladder, no ropes, just working with his hands, having a blast. Safety first, though. So that's the end of the story, but they have this fun page of stats, and I'll show you. The towers use 11,000 pieces of pottery, 15,000 tiles, 6,000 bits of glass, and 10,000 seashells. Those are the towers right there. And the tallest one is almost 100 feet tall. All of that without cranes or forklifts or anything like that, any formal training. So that's the end of the book. This was called Dream Something Big, the story of the Watts Towers by Dianna Hutts Aston, and the collages were by Susan L. Roth. Dream Something Big. Okay. So Uncle Sam was a character, right? And people may have thought that he was kind of strange. People may have thought that he was weird, but did that stop him? No, it did not. Did his lack of formal training and construction and architecture skills stop him? Nope. Did his lack of tools, did he need all the tools to start building? Nope. So if we remember the 3 Ps, possibility, positivity, and perseverance, you too can create beauty in unexpected ways with unexpected things. And usually for Friday Story Times, we have an activity, something specific, but this isn't really anything specific. This is just kind of I encourage all of you to make something with your hands. If it's out of clay, if it's pipe cleaners, whatever. You can make a fort, you know, you can make a blanket fort, you can make jewelry out of string and pasta. You can, if you're like me, getting a lot of like packages and boxes, comes with one of these styrofoam things, you could make, there's a hat, there's my sun hat right now. You can make clothing out of packages. You can make a fort out of packages. The possibilities are really endless. And if you can dream about the possibility, if you can see the possibility in your head, and you stay positive, and you don't get down on yourself if you think it's not turning out the way it is, because Uncle Sam showed us, you don't need formal training. You don't need to be a pro. You don't need to be trained. You don't need to have all the coolest tools and gadgets. If you have the possibility and you stay positive and you persevere and you stick to it until you think it's done, you can create beauty out of unexpected things in unexpected ways. You know, fake jewel, fish rock, kaleidoscope. So I just urge all of you to make something with your hands. It's a very rewarding experience. Anything, twigs and mud, get down to the basics. And if you'd like to share your handmade creations with us at the museum, you can do so using @NHMLA #StorytimeLive. So that's it for today. I hope you loved this book. This is probably my favorite story. I really like this one. And good luck with whatever you make. Remember, safety first. And I hope to see you all soon. And that's all for story time. Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye.